Was at the Bomas of Kenya, where our Duncan Khaemba is as we speak. Duncan, good afternoon. We've listened into Wafula Chebukati. So one, he says he's not resigning, but he says, quote, we are faced with that dilemma as a country. And listening into him, he sounds like a man who's under siege from the commissioners within the commission. He says, all my motions have been defeated by a majority of commissioners. It is difficult to conduct a free, fair, and credible election. Looking at the days, just the number of days that we have to go, 8 days to the October 26th general election, presidential election. What comes to mind, Khaemba?
Linda, we are at a loss on exactly what the chairman was talking about. One, at some point, he almost led one to think that he is about to throw in the towel in the next sentence. Then again, he says there is room if we can change things, if things can work out. That is only when he can guarantee to be the national returning officer. That is only when he can guarantee that we can have a free, credible election on next week, Thursday. And then again, he says he's giving a yellow card to political players in the industry who are making it difficult for the commission, for the staff to discharge their mandate. So we are at a loss on exactly what he was talking about, but one can say perhaps he's just giving pointers that if things don't work and work out expeditiously, perhaps he could be the next Akombe. That means that he could as well throw in the towel, because he says as it stands, he cannot guarantee if we are going to have a credible election next Thursday. Secondly, he says unless 2-3 things happen, he cannot guarantee being the national returning officer for the presidential election. What does that mean? He's a man who is sitting on the edge. He's a man under siege. He's a man who is frustrated because he says he cannot move forward with a divided commission. He cannot move forward where in his capacity as a lawyer and a chairman of the commission, he is overruled by a majority vote in the commission, basically because they have the numbers. So he's painting a picture of a man whose hands are clearly tied, and therefore it's a matter of wait and see. Perhaps he'll be there until Thursday, perhaps he will not be there. As for now, for sure, perhaps as a country, we cannot guarantee that indeed the chairman might be there for the long haul until Thursday and after Thursday to declare who could be the new president or who will be elected after Thursday. Linda.
Khaemba, you know, and like you mentioned, it would have been interesting for someone to ask him, okay, so if all these things you're mentioning cannot be fixed before October 26th, then what happens? Because he's mentioning his commissioners, and he says, I cannot continue to be pushed by commissioners. And he says, let me see if I can get his exact quote. He says, all my motions have been defeated by a majority of commissioners. It's difficult to conduct a free, fair, credible election. And he's asking those mentioned to step aside. Essentially, he needs these commissioners to run this commission. You have 8 days to an election. He's raising concern about the working conditions. How is this going to play out? And as a matter of fact, he says he's not resigning, we still have time. The big question is, do we still have that time?
Yes, and before he began his statement by first of all saying he will not be taking any questions, saying that he was running late for another appointment, another engagement at 2 p.m. and immediately finished reading the statement. Among one of us, a colleague, actually tried to shout and ask a question. He categorically refused. He said all the answers are in the statement that we will be receiving. And then the journalists tried to push on to probe him further. He actually went silent and walked out. So he had categorically said he will not be fielding any questions. So the questions that we would have put to him, of course, he knows that we wanted a clear, forthright position from him. Is he in as a chairman? Is he out? But we could not have that opportunity. And as of now, perhaps we'll only be monitoring what happens between now and Thursday. More so, sorry, Linda, we are on a flight path, of course, here in Bomas. So there are planes that are flying over here. So I think we had some interference with sound. But as I said, he was not so clear. At some point, he was clear that perhaps he wants to take this step. At some point, he's saying he's back. But he has said that he's giving another invitation to presidential candidates to dialogue, He says if there will be things will be done in order, if they will be allowed to do all that, then he will be there as the national returning officer for the presidential tally. But as you've asked, we are looking at 8 days. How will all those things happen between now and Thursday to guarantee that the chairman will be there? So for now, your guess is as good as mine and anybody's. We are not so sure, we are not guaranteed whether indeed we are going to have Wanyonyi Wafula Chebukati as the IEBC chair by Thursday. So it's a matter of wait and see. That sounding of the yellow card to the candidates, it comes at a time of the president equally gave a very short briefing, and he has said that the nation needs to Kenyans need to commit the nation in prayer between now and Sunday. The president has set aside Sunday as the day of national for interceding or praying for the nation. So could it be the president was privy to what the chairman was? Could it be that perhaps he had already hinted that he's going to throw in the towel and maybe made the president actually to talk about that? So for now, we cannot exactly talk about what clear is. But when you look at the statement by the president, short as it was, and where we are, and then what the chairman says, I think we could be in for a political crisis if something doesn't happen, Linda.
Yeah, because I've listened into that whole statement. And when you listen to Chebukati, and if you can read in between the lines, like, let me use his exact words. He says, we're in problems as a country. He just said, one, Haimba, listen, I cannot move forward with a divided nation. I cannot move forward with candidates that cannot put aside personal interest. I cannot continue to be pushed by commissioners. I would rather go out with my name intact. I will not allow anyone to destroy this country as long as I am the referee.
Yes, it is that heavy statement that is causing more confusion. And I said, from where I stand, the chairman was short of actually saying, calling it a day. But again, he has said he's giving room. Linda, when the chairman says that he's inviting the political players to dialogue, he's saying that he wants the commissioner and the staff to be allowed to talk, to work actually without any external interference. He says he's not ready to soil his name. He says, as things stand, Linda, it is difficult to guarantee free and credible elections. He says, I'm convinced that without critical changes in key secretariat staff, we may not have free, fair, and credible election. I ask the staff who have been adversely mentioned to step aside and allow the project team to function without interference. What does that tell you? These conditions are one too many. We are looking at less than 7 days. I mean, is it possible that all this will happen to guarantee that he'll be there? But let us not talk much for him. He has said we monitor, he will be giving an update. Perhaps this could have been his final address. Perhaps he'll come again and say things have worked. So for now, Linda, I'm afraid nobody can truly confirm whether by Thursday we'll be having Wafula Chebukati as the chairman, unless he says things are done in a proper way. Linda.
Yeah, it's interesting because when he began this conversation, he said, we're not even sure what exactly he wanted to say. He's neither here nor there. But now they're talking about officials that he says who have been adversely mentioned to step aside. That would include IEBC CEO Ezra Chiloba. Yes,
basically, in short, he's saying the irreducible minimum, some of the people in the irreducible minimum NASA's list. NASA was very categorical that they believe they are individuals that are capable, that are responsible for what led to the bungled presidential election. Of course, we know that when they made that push, he came up with the changes. The project team, he had 6, he expanded it, he had made some changes, and that's why he says that unless what he calls the project team is allowed to work, then he cannot guarantee a free and credible election on Thursday. So that means he's, in other words, saying all the people that they feel that the one or the other are implicated should buy out. And of course, that means he's indirectly calling upon the CEO and the other that actually were supposed to do it. Remember that the legal officer, Praxidis Tororei, already threw in the towel, Linda.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Duncan Haimba speaking to us from the Bomas of Kenya. Thank you so much, Duncan. Clearly, we have a lot of work to just speculate and try and figure out where exactly this is going. Duncan Haimba from the Bomas of Kenya, just after listening in to that presser by IEBC Chair Wafula Chebukati a couple of minutes ago, basically